by Indra, and he voluntarily accepted that. But since he was supposed to be Indra's enemy, he tried his best. Indra. Thus, he performed his duty. One should perform his duty under all circumstances, even though one may be known, even though one may know what the result will be. Okay, don't give up. In other words, even if it looks like you're going to die, don't give up. Text number 17. Oh, my enemy, consider this battle a gambling match in which our lives are the stakes. The arrows are the dice, and the animals acting as carriers are the game board.
Hmm.
No one can understand who will be defeated and who will be victorious. It all depends on providence. Okay, whenever the word providence is said, it means uh, uh,
It's a karma and the will of the Lord.
yeah, yes, on the will of the Lord. Yeah. 18. Sri Sukadev Uvacha Indro Vitra Vachastritva Gata Nikam Apuch Ayat Vihita Vajra Prahasams Tam Aha Gata Vishmaya. Sukadeva Swami said, hearing the straightforward, instructive words of Vitrasura, King Indra praised him, and again took the thunderbolt in his hand. Without bewilderment or duplicity, he then smiled and spoke to Vitrasura as follows. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. King Indra, the greatest of the demigods, was astonished to hear the instructions of Vitrasura, who was supposed to be a demon. He was struck with wonder that a demon could speak so intelligently. Then he remembered great devotees like Prahlad Maharaj and Bali Maharaj, who had been born in the families of demons. And thus he came to his senses. Even so-called demons sometimes have exalted devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, Indra smiled reassuringly at Vitrasura. Text 19. Indra Vacha. Indra said, O great demon, I see your discrimination and endurance in devotional service. Ah, very nice. Despite your dangerous position, that you are a perfect devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Super Soul, and friend of everyone. Ah, important. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Yam Latva Chaparam Lavam Manyate Nadikam Tata Yasmin Stito Na Duke Na Gunapi Vichalyate. Established in Krishna consciousness, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of the greatest difficulty. An unalloyed devotee is never disturbed by any kind of trying circumstances. Indra was surprised to see that Vitrasura, undisturbed, was fixed in devotional service to the Lord. For such a mentality is impossible for a demon. However, by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, anyone can become an exalted devotee. Striyo Vaishyas Tata Sudras Tipiyanti Param Gatim. An unalloyed devotee is sure to return home back to Godhead. Haribo. Very nice. Text 20. You have surmounted the illusory energy of Lord Vishnu, and because of this liberation, you have given up the demoniac mentality and have attained the position of an exalted devotee. Okay, that's a very good statement. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Lord Vishnu is the Mahapurusha. Therefore, one who becomes a Vaishnava attains the position of a Mahapurusha. This position was attained by Maharaj Parikshit. It is said in the Padma Purana that the distinction between a demigod and a demon is that a demigod is a devotee of Lord Vishnu, whereas a demon is just the opposite. Vishnu Bhakta Smitir Daiva Asuras Tad Viparyayam. Vitrasura was considered a demon, but actually he was more than qualified as a devotee or Mahapurusha. If one somehow becomes a devotee of the Supreme Lord, whatever his position, he can be brought to the position of a perfect person. This is possible if an unalloyed devotee tries to serve the Lord by delivering him in this way. Therefore, Sukadeva Goswami says in Srimad Bhagavatam 2.4.18, Kirtitas Punas Andras Pulinda Pulkasa Abiras Sumbas Yavanas and members of the Kasa races and even others addicted to sinful acts can be purified by taking shelter of the devotee of the Lord, for he is the supreme power. I beg to offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Anyone can be purified if he takes shelter of a pure devotee and molds his character according to the pure devotee's direction. Then, even if one is a Kirata, Andra, Pulindra, or whatever, he can be purified and elevated to the position of a Mahapurusha. Well,
Specifically, Andhra people have been called out.
yeah. They used to be demons. Text 21. O Vitrasura, demons are generally conducted by the mode of passion. Therefore, what a great wonder it is that although you are a demon, you have adopted the mentality of a devotee and have fixed your mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, who is always situated in pure goodness. It's wonderful, wonderful. The demon is actually a devotee. Purport. King Indra wondered how Vitrasura could have been elevated in the position of an exalted devotee. As for Prahlad Maharaj, he was initiated by Narada Muni, and therefore it was possible for him to become a great devotee, although he was born in a family of demons. For Vitrasura, however, Indra could not detect such causes. Therefore, he was struck with wonder that Vitrasura was such an exalted devotee that he could fix his mind without deviation upon the lotus feet of Lord Krishna or Vasudeva. Wow. At least he's recognizing that Vitrasura is not a demon, although he looks like one. Text 22. A person fixed in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord, Hari, the Lord of the highest auspiciousness, swims in the ocean of nectar. For him, what is the use of the water in small ditches? Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Vidyasura has formerly prayed Srimad Bhagavatam 6.11.25. Na naka pristam na cha parameshtiyam na sarva bonam na rasa dipatyam. I do not want the facilities for happiness on Brahmaloka, Swargaloka, or even the Jubalokas, not to speak of this earth or the lower planets. I simply want to return home back to Godhead. This is the determination of a pure devotee. A pure devotee is never attracted to any exalted position within this material world. He simply wants to associate with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, like the inhabitants of Vrindavan. Srimati Radharani, the gopis, the gopi, Krishna's father and mother, Nanda Maharaj and Yasoda, Krishna's friends, and Krishna's servants. He wants to associate with Krishna's atmosphere of Vrindavana beauty. These are the highest ambitions of a devotee of Krishna. Devotees of the Lord Vishnu may aspire for a position in Vaikuntha Loka, but a devotee of Krishna never aspired even for the facilities of Vaikuntha. He wants to return to Goloka Vrindavana and associate with Lord Krishna in his eternal pastimes. Any material happiness is like water in a ditch, whereas the spiritual happiness eternally enjoyed in the spiritual world is like an ocean of nectar in which a devotee wants to swim. Okay, very nice statements. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, Vitrasura and King Indra spoke about devotional service even on the battlefield. And then, as a matter of duty, they again began fighting. My dear king, both of them were great fighters and were equally powerful. Text 24. Oh, Maharaj Parikshit, Vitrasura, who was completely able to subdue his enemy, took his iron club, whirled it around, aimed it at Indra, and then threw it at him with his left hand. Text 25. Sayu Ritrasya Parikam Karam Cha Karabohanam Chiche Eda Yugapad Devo Vajra Sata Parvana. Translation. With his thunderbolt, named Sata Parvan, Indra simultaneously cut to pieces Vitrasura's club and his remaining hand. Text 26. Vitrasura, bleeding profusely, his two arms cut off at their roots, looked very beautiful, like a flying mountain whose wings have been cut to pieces by Indra. It appears from the statement of this verse that sometimes there are flying mountains and that their wings are cut by the thunderbolts of Indra. Vitrasura's huge body resembled such a mountain. Amazing statement. Translation, text number 27 to 29. Translation. Vitrasura was very powerful in physical strength and influence. He placed his lower jaw on the ground and his upper jaw in the sky. His mouth became very deep, like the sky itself, and his tongue resembled a large serpent. Wow, I would be running away. With his fearful, death-like teeth, he seemed to be trying to devour the entire universe, thus assuming a gigantic body. The great demon, Vitrasura, shook even the mountains and began crushing the surface of the earth with his legs, as if he were the Himalayas, walking about. He came before Indra and swallowed him, and Airavata, his carrier, just as a big python might swallow an elephant.
Wow.
Wow. Hope I never see anyone like that. When the demigods, along with Brahma, other Prajapatis, and other great saintly persons saw that Indra had been swallowed by the demon, they became very morose. That sounds very right. Alas, they lamented, what a calamity! What a calamity! Yeah, what terrible thing this is. Text 31. The protective armor of Narayana, which Indra possessed, was identical with Narayana himself, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Protected by the armor and by his own mystic power, King Indra, although swallowed by Vitrasura, did not die within the demon's belly. Wow. With his thunderbolts, King Indra, who was also extremely powerful, pierced through Vitrasura's abdomen and came out. Indra, the killer of the demon Bala, then immediately cut off Vitrasura's head, which was as high as the peak of a mountain. So, in other words, first of all, he's swallowed by the demon, and now he's coming out. Text 33. Although the thunderbolt evolved around Vitrasura's neck with a great speed, separating his head from his body took one complete year, 360 days, the time in which the sun, moon, and other luminaries complete a northern and southern journey. Then, at the suitable time for Vitrasura to be killed, his head fell to the ground.
Whoa.
It took a whole
One
year. to cut his head off. Wow.
That big it was.
Huh?
That gigantic it was.
Yeah. Amazing. When Vritrasura was killed, the Gandharvas and Siddhas in the heavenly planets beat kettle drums in jubilation. With Lady Kim, they celebrated the prowess of Indra, the killer of Vritrasura, praising Indra and showering flowers upon him with great pleasure. 635. O King Parikshit, subduer of enemies, the living spark then came forth from Vritrasura's body and returned home, back to Godhead. While all the demigods looked on, he entered the transcendental world to become an associate of Lord Sankarsana. Wow. Haribol. Purport. Sri Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur explains that Indra, not Vritrasura, was actually killed. Wow. That's interesting. He says that when Vritrasura swallowed King Indra and his carrier, the elephant, he thought, now I have killed Indra, and therefore there is no more need of fighting. Not now, let me return home back to Godhead. Thus, he stopped all his bodily activities and became situated in trance. Taking advantage of the silence of Vritrasura's body, Indra pierced the demon's abdomen. And because of Vritrasura's trance, Indra was able to come out. Now, Vritrasura was a yoga samadhi, and therefore, although King Indra wanted to cut his throat, the demon's neck was so stiff that Indra's thunderbolt took 360 days, or 1 year, to cut it to pieces. Actually, it was the body left by Vritrasura that was cut to pieces by Indra. Vritrasura himself was not killed. In his original consciousness, Vritrasura returned home back to Godhead to become an associate of Lord Sankarsana. Here, the word alokam means the transcendental world, Vaikuntha where Sankarsana eternally resides. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 6th canto, 12th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam entitled Vritrasura's Glorious Death. But it doesn't look like he died then. Because it says, what does it say here? It says, and because of Vritrasura's trance, Indra was able to come out. Now Vritrasura was in yoga samadhi.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, although King Indra wanted to cut his throat, the demon's neck was so stiff that Indra's thunderbolt took 360 days to cut it to pieces. Actually, it was the body left by Vritrasura that was cut to pieces by Indra. Vritrasura himself was not killed.
So, because a devotee cannot be killed, by then Vritrasura has left the body, went back to Godhead.
Yeah.
So Indra was only dealing with the body.
Yes. Vritrasura himself was not killed. In his original consciousness, Vritrasura returned home back to Godhead to become an associate of Lord Sankarsana. Here the word alokam means the transcendental world, Vaikuntha Loka, where Sankarsana eternally resides. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 6th canto, 12th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam entitled Vritrasura's Glorious Death. Wow. Well, that completely changes our perception of who Vitrasura is. He's an asura, but yet he's a pure devotee. Therefore, we should never judge anyone quickly. We should gradually understand who someone is. If you have a fast evaluation of someone, you could make a big mistake. So, Vitrasura was actually a pure devotee. Chapter 13, King Indra, afflicted by sinful reaction. Well, yeah, he killed a pure devotee. This chapter describes Indra's fear as having killed a Brahmana, Vitrasura, and it also describes how he fled and was saved by the grace of Lord Vishnu. When all the demigods requested Indra to kill Vitrasura, he refused because Vitrasura was a Brahmana. The demigods, however, encouraged Indra not to fear killing him because Indra was protected by the Narayana Kavacha, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, Lord Narayana. Even by a glimpse of the chanting of Narayana's name, one becomes free from all sinful reactions of killing a woman, a cow, or a Brahmana. The demigods advised Indra to perform an Ashvamedha sacrifice by which Narayana would be pleased, for the performer of such a sacrifice is not implicated in sinful reactions, even if he kills the entire universe. Interesting. Following this instruction from the demigods, King Indra fought Vitrasura, but when Vitrasura was killed, everyone was satisfied but King Indra, who knew Vitrasura's position. This is the nature of a great devotee. This is the nature of a great personality. Even if a great personality acquires some opulence, he is always ashamed and regretful if he acquires it illegally. Indra could understand that he was certainly entangled by sinful reactions for killing a Brahmin. Indeed, he could see sinful reaction personified following him. Oh, that's terrible. It's like a ghost. And thus he fled here and there in fear, thinking of how to rid himself of his sins. He went to Manasa Sarovara, and there, under the protection of the goddess of fortune, he meditated for 1,000 years. During this time, Nahusa reigned over the heavenly planets and the representative of Indra, as the representative of Indra. Unfortunately, however, he was attracted by the beauty of Indra's wife. Oh man, this is getting really complicated. Sati Devi. And because of his sinful desire, he had to accept the body of a serpent in his next life. Indra later performed a great sacrifice with the help of exalted brahmanas and saints. In this way, he was released from the reactions of the sinful killing of a Brahmin. Well, he became a serpent for some time because he became attached to Sachi Devi. And because of his sinful desire, he had to accept the body of a serpent in his next life. Indra later performed a great sacrifice with the help of exalted brahmanas and saints, In this way, he was released from the action of a sinful killing of a Brahmana. Indra's an interesting person. I'm glad I'm not like Indra. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, O King Parikshit, who are so charitably disposed. When Vitrasura was killed, all the presiding deities and everyone else in the three planetary systems was immediately pleased and free from trouble. Everyone, that is, except Indra. Because Indra realized that he's actually a pure devotee. Vitrasura is actually a pure devotee. Text 2. Devarshi Pitri Bhutani Daitya Deva Nuga Swayam Prati Jagmu Swa Dishan Yani Brahmeshendriya Dayas Tata. Thereafter, the demigods, the great saintly persons, the inhabitants of Pitra Loka and Uta Loka, the demons, the followers of the demigods, and also Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and the demigods subordinate to Indra, all returned to their respective homes. While departing, however, no one spoke to Indra. He's a bad guy now. Report. In this connection, Shiva Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakura, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and the other demigods returned to their respective abodes, but Indra did not, for he was disturbed at having killed Vitrasura, who was actually a Brahmana. After killing Vitrasura, Indra went to the Manasa Sarovar lake to become free from sinful reactions. Yeah, he's going to take a bath in that lake. When he left the lake, he performed an Asvamedha Yajna, which is really complicated, and then returned to his own abode. Text 3. Maharaj Parikshit inquired from Sukadeva Goswami, O great sage, what was the reason for Indra's unhappiness? I wish to hear about this. When he killed Vitrasura, all the demigods were extremely happy. Why then was Indra himself unhappy? Because he killed a pure devotee, that's why. This, of course, is a very intelligent question. When a demon is killed, certainly all the demigods are happy. In this case, however, when all the demigods were happy because of Vitrasura's having been killed, Indra was unhappy. Why? It may be suggested that Indra was unhappy because he knew that he had killed a great devotee and Brahmana. Vitrasura outwardly appeared to be a demon, but inwardly he was a great devotee and therefore a great Brahmana. Okay, there it is. That's why Indra is unhappy. Herein, it is clearly indicated that a person who is not at all demoniac, such as Prahlad Maharaj and Bali Maharaj, may outwardly be a demon or be born in a family of demons. Therefore, in terms of real culture, one should not be considered a demigod or demon simply according to the point. In his dealings, while fighting with Indra, Vitrasura proved himself a great devotee of the Supreme Personality of God. Furthermore, as soon as he finished fighting with Indra and was apparently killed, Vitrasura was transferred to the Vaikuntha Loka to become an associate of Sankarsana. Indra knew this, and therefore he was morose at of having killed such a demon who was actually a Vaishnava or Brahmana. Wow. A Vaishnava is already Brahmana, although a Brahmana may not be a Vaishnava. The Padma Purana says, Satkarma Nipuno Vipro, Mantra Tantra Visarada, a Vaishnava Guru Nasya, Vaishnava Swa Pacho Guru. One may be a Brahmana in terms of his culture and family, and may be expert in Vedic knowledge. Mantra Tantra Visarada. But if he is not a Vaishnava, he cannot be a guru. Well, this means that an expert Brahmana may not be a Vaishnava, for the Vaishnava is already a Brahmana. A millionaire may very easily possess hundreds and thousands of dollars, but a person with hundreds and thousands of dollars is not necessarily a millionaire. Vitrasura was a perfect Vaishnava, and therefore he was also a Brahmana. A millionaire may very easily possess hundreds and thousands of dollars, but a person with hundreds and thousands of dollars is not necessarily a millionaire. Vitrasura was a perfect Vaishnava, and therefore he was also a Brahmana. Well, just because someone has money, that does not mean that they are actually a person that should be what you would call respected, because he might be a rogue, even though he was able to make a lot of money. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, here Maharaj, the Prabhupada is giving the analogy that it's like a millionaire and billionaire.
Mhm.
A billionaire is automatically a millionaire, but millionaire is not a billionaire necessarily. So that's what he's giving that analogy. That means Brahmana is of a lower definition of Brahmana. Lower is lower than that of a devotee.
Right. A millionaire may very easily possess hundreds and thousands of dollars, but a person with hundreds and thousands of dollars is not necessarily a millionaire. Vitrasura was a perfect Vaishnava, and therefore he was also a Brahmin. Yeah, I mean, just because he has money doesn't mean he is someone who should be worshipped. Text number 4. Sri Sukadeva Goswami answered, when all the great sages and demigods were disturbed by the extraordinary power of Vitrasura, they had assembled to ask Indra to kill him. Indra, however, being afraid of killing a Brahmana, declined their request. Okay, now we're getting to the real point here. Text 5. King Indra replied, when I killed Vitrasura, I received extensive sinful reactions, but I was favored by the woman, land, trees, and water, and therefore I was able to divide the sin among them. Very interesting. Now it's getting more complicated, because he committed a sin, but he distributed the sin to women.
So that is when he killed Vishwarupa, who is the father of Vritrasura.
Father who?
Of Vritrasura. So he first. So before he killing Vritrasura,
yeah.
Indra kills the father of with Vritrasura called Vishwarupa. So that's when he's first saying, like, when I killed Vishwarupa, that is the father, then also he received sinful reactions, but he shared it among the people who he controls.
Women, land, trees, and water. And therefore, I was able to divide the sin among them. But now, if I kill Vitrasura, another Brahmana, how shall I free myself from sinful reactions? Okay, text number 6. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, hearing this, the great sages replied to King Indra, O King of Heaven, all good fortune unto you. Do not fear. We shall perform an Ashwamedha sacrifice to release you from any sin you may accrue by killing the Brahman. Oh, wow, that's interesting. Text 7. The rishis continued, O King Indra, by performing an Ashwamedha sacrifice and thereby pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the Super Soul, Lord Narayana, the Supreme Controller, one can be relieved even of the sinful reactions for killing the entire world, not to speak of killing a demon like Vitrasura. I think in the Ashwamedha sacrifice, they actually kill
a horse.
A horse, yeah. Text 8 and 9. One who has killed a Brahmana, one who has killed a cow, or one who has killed his father, mother, or spiritual master, can be immediately freed from all sinful reactions simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord Narayana. Other sinful persons, such as dog eaters and chandalas, who are less than sudras, can also be freed in this way. But you are a devotee, and we shall help you by performing the great horse sacrifice. If you please Lord Narayana in that way, why should you be afraid? You will be freed even if you kill the entire universe, including the Brahmanas, not to speak of killing a disturbing demon like Vitrasura. Well, okay, let's see what it says. It is said in the Brihad Purana, Namno hi yavati sati papa nirhar rane hare tavat kartun na saknoti patakam patak e nara. Also in the Prema Vivarta by Jagadananda Pandita, it is said, Eka Krishna Name Papira Yata Papa Shaya Bahu Janme Sei Papi Karite Naraya. This means that by once chanting the holy name of the Lord, one can be freed from the reactions of more sins than he can even imagine performing. The holy name is so spiritually potent that simply by chanting the holy name, one can be freed from the reactions to all sinful activities. What then is it to be said of those who chant the holy name regularly or worship the deity regularly? For such purified devotees, Freedom from sinful reaction is certainly assured. This does not mean, however, that one should intentionally commit sinful acts and then think himself free from the reactions because he is chanting the holy name. Such a mentality is most abominable. Is a most abominable offense at the lotus feet of the holy name. Nam no balad yasyahi papa butir. The Lord's holy name certainly has the potency to neutralize all sinful activities. But if one repeatedly and intentionally commits sins while chanting the holy name, he is most condemned. These verses name the performers of various sinful deeds. In the Manusamhita, the following names are given: a son begotten by a Brahmana and born from the womb of a Sudra mother is called a Parasava Parasava or Nisada, a hunter accustomed to stealing. Oh boy. A son begotten by a Nisada in the womb of a Sudra woman is called a Kukasa. A child begotten by a Kshatriya in the womb of the daughter of a Sudra is called a Ugra. A child begotten by the Sudra in the womb of the daughter of a Kshatriya is called a Kshata. A child begotten by a Kshatriya in the womb of a lower class woman is called a Swada, or dog eater. All such offspring are considered extremely sinful, but the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is so strong that all of them can be purified simply by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. The Hare Krishna movement offers everyone a chance to be purified. Well, that is a blessing that is wonderful, regardless of birth or family, as confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam 2.4.18. Kirata Manandra Pulindra Pukasa Abira Sumba Yavana Kasadaya Yene Cha Papa Yad Apasrayasraya Sudhyanti Tasmai Prabhavishnave Nama. Very important verse. Kiratas, Punas, Andhras, they're the Andhras. Pulindra, Pulkasas, Abiras, Sumbas, Yavanas, members of the Kasa races, and even others addicted to sinful acts can be purified by taking shelter of devotees of the Lord. For he is the supreme power. I beg to offer he is the supreme power. I beg to offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Even such sinful persons can certainly all be purified if they chant the holy name of the Lord under the direction of a pure devotee. Herein the sages encourage King Indra to kill Vitrasura even at the risk of Brahma Hatya, meaning killing Brahmana. Here the sages encourage King Indra to kill Vitrasura even at the risk of Brahma Hatya, the killing of a Brahmana. And they guarantee to release him from sinful reactions by performing an Ashwamedha yajna. Such purposefully devised atonement, however, cannot relieve the performer of sinful acts. This will be seen from the following verse. Wow, that's putting everything taking everything and putting it on its head. This sounds like it's going to what you would call erase the purity of a person who has been purified by doing some kind of what you would call yajna to become purified. Okay. So herein the sages encourage King Indra to kill Vitrasura, even at the risk of Brahma Hatya, killing a Brahman. The killing of a Brahmana, and they guarantee to release him from sinful reactions by performing an Ashwamedha Yajna. Such purposefully devised atonement, however, cannot relieve the performer of sinful acts. That's the main point right there. This will be seen from the following verses. Okay, so therefore, such purposefully devised atonement, however, cannot relieve the performer of sinful acts. That's our takeaway right there. Very important statement. Such purposefully devised atonement, however, cannot relieve the performer of sinful acts. This will be seen from the following verse. Okay. She stated this one, we said, encouraged by the words of the sages. Indra killed Vitrasura. When he was killed, the sinful reaction for killing a Brahmana or Brahma Hatya certainly took shelter of Indra. Purport. After killing Vitrasura, Indra could not surpass the Brahma Hatya, the sinful reactions for killing a Brahman. Formerly, he had killed one Brahmana, Vishwarupa, out of circumstantial anger. But this time, following the advice of the sages, he killed another Brahmana purposefully. Therefore, the sinful reaction was greater than before. Indra could not be relieved from the reaction simply by performing sacrifices for atonement. Very good statement. Very, very good statement. He had to undergo a severe series of sinful reactions. And when he was freed by such suffering, the Brahmanas allowed him to perform the horse sacrifice. The horse sacrifice, again, they're killing a horse. The planned execution of sinful deeds on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord or undergoing prayaschita, atonement, cannot give relief to anyone. Nice. Even to Indra or Nahusa. Nahusa was officiating for Indra, while Indra, absent from heaven, was going here and there to gain release from his sinful reactions. Okay, so the planned execution of sinful deeds on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord or undergoing prayaschita, atonement, cannot give relief to anyone, even to Indra or Nahusa. So what is it? It's the planned execution of sinful deeds. If it's accidental performance of a deed, that can be let's say purified. But a planned execution of sinful deeds on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord or undergoing prayaschitta atonement cannot give relief to anyone, even to Indra or Nahusa. Prayaschitta atonement cannot give relief to anyone, even to Indra or Nahusa. Nahusa was officiating for Indra, while Indra, absent from heaven, was going here and there to gain release from his sinful reactions. Text 11. Following the advice of the demigods, Indra killed Vritrasura, and he suffered because of this sinful killing. Although the other demigods were happy, he could not derive happiness from the killing of Vritrasura. Indra's other good qualities, such as the tolerance and opulence, could not help him in his grief. This should be a warning. Everyone should pay attention to this. Purport. One cannot be happy by committing sinful acts, even if one is endowed with material opulence. Indra found this to be true. People began to blaspheme him, saying, "This person has killed a Brahmana for the sake of enjoying heavenly material happiness." Therefore, in spite of being king of heaven and enjoying material opulence, Indra was always unhappy because of the accusations of the populace. Whoa. That means that if one commits a sinful activity, there's no way that he can free himself of that sinful activity when the populace or the people in general condemn him. Therefore, one has to be very careful. Everyone have to be very careful with what they do. There's nothing worse than having the general populace hate you for committing a sinful activity, or not hate, but condemn you for having committed a sinful activity. Indra saw personified sinful reaction, chasing, wow, appearing like a Chandala woman, a woman of the lowest class. She seemed very old, and all the limbs of her body trembled, because she was afflicted with tuberculosis. Her body and garment were covered with blood, breathing an unbearable fishy odor that polluted the entire street. She called to Indra, "Wait, wait." Yeah, I'm not waiting for you, but wait. Purport. When a person is afflicted with tuberculosis, he often vomits blood, which makes his garments bloody. Text 14. O King Indra, O King, Indra first fled to the sky, but there also he saw the woman of personified sin chasing him. This witch followed him wherever he went. At last, he very quickly went to the northeast and entered the Manasa Sarovar lake. Let's see if he's going to get purified by bathing in the Manasa Sarovar lake. Text 15. Always thinking of how he could be relieved from the sinful reaction for killing a Brahmana, King Indra, invisible to everyone, lived in the lake for 1,000 years in the subtle fibers of the stem of a lotus. A lotus. The fire god used to bring him his share of all yajnas, but because the fire god, I guess that's Agni, was afraid to enter the water, Indra was practically starving. As long as King Indra lived in the water, wrapped in the stem of the lotus, Nahusa was equipped with the ability to rule the heavenly kingdom due to his knowledge, austerity, and mystic power. Nahusa, however, blinded and maddened by power and opulence, made undesirable proposals to Indra's wife. Oh boy, it's getting complicated here. So, made undesirable proposals to Indra's wife with a desire to enjoy her. Thus, Nahusa was cursed by a Brahmana and later became a snake. Oh my God. Okay, you try to have sex with somebody's wife. It's not good. Not good at all. Text number 17. Indra's sins were diminished by the influence of Rudra, the demigod of all directions, because Indra was protected by the goddess of fortune, Lord Vishnu's wife, who resides in the lotus clusters of Manasa Sarovara Lake. Indra's sins could not affect him. Indra was ultimately relieved of all the reactions of his sinful deeds by strictly worshiping Lord Vishnu. Then he was called back to the heavenly planets by the Brahmanas and reinstated in his position. Well, the saving grace is to surrender oneself to bona fide devotees, or Brahmanas, and be purified of dastardly sinful activities. Text 18. O king, when Lord Indra reached the heavenly planets, the saintly Brahmanas approached him and properly initiated him into a horse sacrifice, Ashramedha Yajna, meant to please the Supreme Lord. Of course, that type of sacrifice, the Ashramedha sacrifice, is forbidden in Kali Yuga. The horse sacrifice performed by the saintly Brahmanas relieved Indra of the reactions to all his sins because he worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead in that sacrifice. O king, although he had committed a gravely sinful act, it was nullified at once by that sacrifice, just as fog is vanquished by the brilliant sunrise. Text 21. King Indra was favored by Marichi and the other great sages. They performed the sacrifice just according to the rules and regulations, worshiping the Supreme Personality of God, the Super Soul, the original person. Thus, Indra regained his exalted position and was again honored by everyone. Text number 22 and 23. In this very great narrative, there is glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana. There are statements about the exaltedness of devotion service. There are descriptions of devotees like Indra and Vitrasura. And there are statements about King Indra's release from sinful life and about his victory in fighting the demons. By understanding this incident, one is relieved of all sinful reactions. Good news. Therefore, the learned are always advised to read this narration. If one does so, one will become expert in the activities of the senses. His opulence will increase and his reputation will become widespread. One will also be relieved of all sinful reactions. He will conquer all the enemies, and the duration of his life will increase. Because this narration is auspicious in all respects, learned scholars regularly hear and repeat it on every festival day. Wow, Haribol. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 6th canto, 13th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled King Indra Afflicted by Sinful Reaction. Wow, that is amazing statement there. Okay, what time is it now? Are we over time?
Yeah, we are at time, Maharaj.
What?
We are at time.
Yeah. So we have to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, our takeaway for today is this last statement. In this very great narrative, there is glorification of the Supreme Personified Godhead in one. There are statements about the exaltedness of devotion service. There are descriptions of devotees like Indra and Vitrasur. And there are statements about King Indra's release from sinful life and about his victory in fighting the demons. By understanding this incident, one is relieved of all sinful reactions. Therefore, the learned are always advised to read this narration. If one does so, one will become expert in the activities of the senses. His opulence will increase and his reputation will become widespread. One will also be relieved of all sinful reactions. He will conquer all his enemies, and the duration of his life will increase, because this narration is auspicious in all respects. Learned scholars regularly hear and repeat it on every festival day. Wow. Okay, that is what you would call insider knowledge. If you commit sins and things like that, you should read this very carefully. Let's see here. This is Canto 6, Chapter 13. Let's see if I can. Chapter 13. Yeah. King Indra afflicted by sinful reaction. We should read this on special days. Okay, I think we'll stop right there. This is called vicarious knowledge. We don't have to commit sins. Or we don't have to do things ourselves to understand things. Just by hearing the narrations here about King Indra, we can be freed of sinful reactions. We don't have to do the things that Indra did. Simply hearing this, we can become purified. Okay, this is something we have to hear again. King Indra afflicted by sinful reaction. All this is very, very important. So therefore, it says, when all the demigods requested Indra to kill Vitrasura, he refused because Vitrasura was a Brahmin. The demigods, however, encouraged Indra not to fear killing him because Indra was protected by the Narayana Kavacha, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, Lord Narayana. Even by a glimpse of the chanting of Narayana's name, one becomes free from all the sinful reactions of killing a woman, a cow, or a brahmana. The demigods advised Indra to perform an Aswamedha sacrifice, by which Narayana would be pleased for the performer of such a sacrifice is not implicated in sinful reactions, even if he kills the entire universe. Well, by the way, this horse sacrifice is forbidden in Kali Yuga. You should not do it. Following this instruction from the demigods, King Indra fought Vitrasura. But when Vitrasura was killed, everyone was satisfied but King Indra, who knew Vitrasura's position. This is the nature of a great personality. Even if a great personality acquires some opulence, he is always ashamed and regretful if he acquires it illegally. Indra could understand that he was certainly entangled by sinful reactions for killing a Brahmin. Indeed, he could see sinful reaction personified following him, and thus he fled here and there in fear, thinking of how to rid himself of his sins. He went to Manasa Sarovar, and there, under the protection of the goddess of fortune, he meditated for 1,000 years. During this time, Nahusa reigned over the heavenly planets as the representative of Indra. Unfortunately, however, he was attracted by the beauty of Indra's wife, Sachi Devi, and because of his sinful desire, he had to accept the body of a serpent in his next life. Indra later performed a great sacrifice with the help of exalted brahmanas and saints. In this way, he was released from the reactions of his sinful killing of a brahmana. Wow. Well, it looks like there's always the possibility of purifying oneself from even nasty sins committed, such as having sex with somebody else's wife, things like that. It's terrible. But there's always a possibility to be purified in Krishna consciousness. Okay, so that is our takeaway from today. That is, says, even if a great personality acquires some opulence, he is always ashamed and regretful if he acquires it illegally. Indra could understand that he was certainly entangled by sinful reactions for killing a Brahmin. Indeed, he could see sinful reaction personified following him. And thus he fled here and there in fear, thinking of how to rid himself of his sins. He went to Manasa Sarovara, and there, under the protection of the goddess of fortune, he meditated for 1,000 years. During this time, Nahusa reigned over the heavenly planets as the representative of Indra. Unfortunately, however, he was attracted by the beauty of Indra's wife, Sachi Devi. And unfortunately, however, he was attracted by the beauty of Indra's wife, Sachi Devi. And because of his sinful desire, he had to accept the body of a serpent in his next life. Indra later performed a great sacrifice with the help of exalted Brahmanas and saints. In this way, he was released from the reactions of his sinful killing of a Brahmana. So, Indra more or less has committed all the sins that he can possibly commit, but yet he still was purified. That means that even the most horrible person can be purified if they take the Krishna consciousness. Okay, so we will, and this is something you have to read over again. And it mentions that here, that this episode should be heard over again. Okay, so we can learn a lot from all the mistakes Indra has made, and understand that even though his mistakes were abominable, still there is the possibility of becoming purified. Therefore, we should very carefully, avoid committing any sinful acts, because it gets complicated. Look, it's better just to be a simple devotee, avoiding all sinful activities. Then we don't have to have such long explanation of how to become purified after doing so many sinful things. My God. It says, this chapter, that's chapter 13, describes Indra's fear at having killed a Brahmana, Vritrasura, and it also describes how he fled and was saved by the grace of Lord Vishnu. Okay, fine. You can get saved by the grace of Lord Vishnu, but why should we commit any type of horrible killing? It's not required. We should avoid it. Of course, in this case, the demigods are requesting Indra to kill Vritrasura. But he refused because Vritrasura was a Brahmin. The demigods, however, encouraged Indra not to fear killing him because Indra was protected by the Narayana Kavacha, or the Supreme Personality Godhead himself, Lord Narayana. Even by a glimpse of the chanting of Narayana's name, meaning Hare Krishna, one becomes free from all the sinful reactions of killing a woman, a cow, or a Brahman. The demigods advised Indra to perform an Ashvamedha sacrifice, by which Narayana would be pleased, for the performer of such a sacrifice is not implicated in sinful reactions, even if he kills the entire universe. You got to be careful with statements like this, because if we think that we can commit purposefully those type of sinful activities and then perform some sacrifice to whitewash our sinful activities, it's not a good thing to do. Best thing is to strictly follow the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness and not get involved in activities like Indra. Yeah. Okay, of course, the Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. I'm going to read this over again today. All right, thank you very much. Yes, brother.
So Maharaj, in the last text
Yeah.
of this chapter, in the middle it says, by understanding this incident, one is relieved of all sinful reactions.
Yeah.
So again, if someone is doing sinful act purposefully, that person will not be relieved, even they will read this again and again, because its act was done purposefully. So
Yeah, that
is it
makes
correct?
sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm just
If you
clarifying.
purposefully commit sinful activities, and then you try and whitewash it with different types of sacrifices, then do it again and again, and you're not going to be purified.
Even though we are reading this chapter, like by understanding this incident, one is relieved of all sinful reactions. So that person will also not be relieved, even though we are keep reading these chapters, because someone is acting, someone was someone did that act based upon purpose, some purpose.
So it says, by understanding this incident, one is relieved of all sinful reaction. Therefore, the learned are always advised to read this narration. If one does so, one will become expert in the activities of the senses. His opulence will increase and his reputation will become widespread. One will also be relieved of all sinful reactions. He will conquer all his enemies, and the duration of his life will increase, because this narration is auspicious in all respects. Learned scholars regularly hear and repeat it on every festival day. Wow. All right. I'm going to read this over again. So King Indra afflicted by sinful reactions. We need to read this. I'm going to read this today. Okay, thank you very much, my dear devotees. Please chant Hare Krishna. And our takeaway for today is, do not commit any sinful activities because it gets complicated. Yeah, there is a way to purify the sins that you've committed, but why go there in the first place? It becomes very complicated. Okay, thank you very much, my dear devotees, and have a very good day. And we should very seriously think about reading this again of what's happening to Indra.
One more question.
Yeah,
In the purport of text 11,
yeah.
in the middle it says,
Text 11. That's Canto 6, Chapter 13, Text 11.
yes, Maharaj.
Text 11. Okay, let me click it. Chapter 13, Text 11. 1 second. Yeah, okay.
In the middle of the purport, it says, this person has killed a Brahmana for the sake of enjoying heavenly material happiness.
Terrible.
So does it mean Indra was a devotee, but at the same time he was attached to the material sense gratification?
Therefore, in spite of being king of heaven and enjoying material opulence, Indra was always unhappy because of the accusations of the populace. That's a very important statement. The accusations of the populace. Yeah, if you commit nasty actions, you're going to be basically very upset because the populace or the people are not going to accept such behavior. And because people will be disgusted by that bad behavior. You can't really, I mean, if your activities are disgusting, people begin to hate a person like that. And if a person knows that he's not, respected at all, they become disturbed. Therefore, it says here, one cannot be happy by committing sinful acts. That means that if we commit sinful acts, we won't be happy, no matter how rich we are, no matter how much wealth we have, etc. Even if one is endowed with material opulence, Indra found this to be true. See, this is the instruction that we should learn. One cannot be happy by committing sinful acts, even if one is endowed with material opulence. Indra found this to be true. Okay, so that's Canto 6, chapter 13, verse 11. One cannot be happy by committing sinful acts, even if one is endowed with material opulence. Indra found this to be true. People began to blaspheme him, saying, "This person has killed a Brahmana for the sake of enjoying heavenly material happiness." Therefore, in spite of being a king of heaven and enjoying material opulence, Indra was always unhappy because of the accusations of the populace. Whoa, that's a very big statement. And then what happens? Indra saw personified sinful reaction chasing him, appearing like a Chandala woman, a woman of the lowest class. She seemed very old, and all the limbs of her body trembled because she was afflicted with tuberculosis. Her body and garments were covered with blood. Breathing an unbearable fishy odor that polluted the entire street, she called to Indra, "Wait, wait." He wasn't going to wait. When a person is afflicted with tuberculosis, he often vomits blood, which makes his garments bloody. Now, you see, this is what happens when people commit dastardly, horrible activities. They get haunted by a woman who vomits blood and makes garments bloody and gives a very bad smell. This is what happens when people commit such horrible acts. Then they are pursued by these demoniac personalities. Therefore, we should always follow the regulative principles of Krishna consciousness, not commit any sinful activities, not be obliged to perform so many yajnas to purify ourselves. Otherwise, we get into a horrible situation, such as when a person is afflicted with tuberculosis, he often vomits blood, which makes his garments bloody. So, what happened here? Indra saw personified sin. Indra saw personified sinful reaction chasing him, appearing like a Chandala woman, a woman of the lowest class. She seemed very old, and all the limbs of her body trembled. Because she was afflicted with tuberculosis, her body and garment were covered with blood. Breathing an unbearable fishy odor that polluted the entire street, she called to Indra, "Wait, wait." No, Indra is running as fast as he can to get away from her. You see, people that commit sinful acts, well, they eventually are haunted by these type of horrible situations, such as a very old lady and who smells really bad, chasing one, and her garments were covered with blood, breathing an unbearable fishy odor that polluted the entire street. And she called out to Indra, "Wait, wait." Oh my God, can you just imagine that? When a person is afflicted with tuberculosis, he often vomits blood, which makes his garments bloody. Yeah, this should be a real lesson to us not to commit sinful activities and not to try and whitewash them with some kind of some kind of ceremony, thinking that you can get free of the sin. Yeah, you might get free for some time, but you will not. You'll not really be happy. And therefore, that's what it says here. And what does it say? It says that it's. Indra saw personified sinful reaction chasing him, appearing like a Chandala woman, a woman of the lowest class. She seemed very old, and all the limbs of her body trembled, because she was afflicted with tuberculosis. Her body and garments were covered with blood, breathing an unbearable fishy odor that polluted the entire street. She called to Indra, "Wait, wait." Yeah, we don't want to be in that position. An old, ugly woman running after us and having an unbearable fishy odor that polluted the entire street, and calling us, saying, "Wait, wait." Can you imagine that? That's like a really bad dream. You don't want to be put in a position like that. Okay, well, we'll stop right there. But you see what happens when you commit sinful activities. It becomes hellish. You don't want to do that. It's not a good thing. Okay, thank you very much, my dear devotees. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. You see what, illicit sex and meat eating, intoxication, all these things. It is like, so contaminating. And you can never really be happy by performing activities like that. And this is what happened. Look, what? You see that? See that old man, right? And all of these persons torturing him. That's what happens when we commit sinful activities.
It's very horrible
It's
situation.
horrible. See, now we can learn a lot of things from Indra's history. That will give us. Then we don't have any. Let's say. We can't say, "Well, I didn't know," right? We're reading this. You can't say, "I didn't know." You have to give up all sinful activities. Otherwise, you're going to be chased by a crazy woman that smells really bad. You know how horrible that is? That's like hell. It's worse than hell. And we see this. Look, have you been following? What's the name of the guy? What's his name? He's in the newspapers all the time. He committed suicide.
Epstein.
Yeah, right, Epstein. Look at that. He got so, troubled mentally that he committed suicide because he had raped so many young girls and women, and he had a lot of money and all that stuff. But what use is it? In the end, he committed suicide because people hated him. So many women hated him for what he did. Okay, so you can't say, I didn't know. No, you can't say that. The example, you have Epstein's history and you have Indra's history. What else do you want? All the information is there. We just have to hear it and learn by hearing, not by doing.